Good evening and welcome to a special WillowVision. Tonight we are presenting the quiche recipe from the book How to Feed Your Parents, which is what was read for our Willow books. So it's that crossover event between WillowBooks and WillowVision. So I hope you enjoy the recipe. You can pay special note to the fact that nothing in this is perfect. I am not an expert chef, but hopefully you and your family can have some time to cook together, maybe make a treat for Mother's Day coming up. Thanks. So again, this comes out of How to Feed Your Parents, and at the very back of the book, there's a recipe for quiche. There's two pieces to this recipe. There is the crust that is needed that you're going to bake first, and then there is the filling. For both of these, you're going to need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees so that it's ready to go. So when you get these recipes together, make sure you get all your ingredients and everything put together so that you are set and ready to go. We're going to start off with the crust. For this, we're going to need 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 2/3 cup of butter, and 6 tablespoons of ice water. You may use up to 8 tablespoons. We're going to mix all of that together in a bowl, and we're going to blend that. Now, when I add ingredients, I like to measure over a separate bowl so that I don't spill into my ingredients, because if you get too much of something in your bowl, that can change it drastically. If it's overspill into that little bowl, we just throw it away and it's no big deal. But if it's in your crust recipe, you got too much oil or too much salt, your crust is not going to turn out the way you want it, and nobody wants that. So once we have that all put together, we are going to blend that, and we're going to blend it until it turns into a firm dough. Now you can't do this by hand with a spoon or with a pastry blender. I've got the pastry attachments to my hand blender right there. If you got one of those nice bowl blenders, that would help out a lot because this takes a while. Make sure your butter is softened before you do this, because otherwise it takes even longer to get those butter pieces to blend into everything there. Okay, once we have blended the dough, we're going to form that into 2 equal sized balls. So I've got flour on my hands, I've got flour on the counter, I've got flour on my rolling pin. We don't want it to stick anywhere. So we're going to roll 3 times away from ourselves, and then we're going to rotate that dough about 1/4 of a turn. If it ever starts sticking, just add more flour to wherever it's sticking. If it's sticking to the counter, add more flour to the counter. If it's sticking to your pin, add more flour to the pin. Sticking to your hands, just add more flour to your hands. You notice I keep my flour separate from my flour container. I've got a bowl over there because I don't want to reach into my flour bag or my flour container over and over again with hands that are cooking, because then my flour is disgusting for the next time I cook. So once we have that all rolled out to about a 12-inch diameter circle, we are going to fold it. This is a trick I learned a long time ago. Makes it easy to move a pie crust into the pie pan. You put a little flour on top and you fold it in half. You put a little more flour on that and you fold it in half again. So you've got a 1/4 piece, just a little corner there. And then we can easily move that into our pie tin. So we put it there, we put that corner right in the middle, and we unfold it. And then we have our overhang all the way across. From here, we are going to take this dough that's folded over the edge, and we're going to fold it back in so that we're thicker at the top. Our crust we're just making a nice thick crust at the top. Just push it in there and use those fingers to crimp it down a little bit and make it fit that pie dish. Once we're done with this, we're going to do the same thing with the other ball of dough, roll it out. Then we're going to put them in that oven at 350 degrees. Make sure before you put it in, you poke the bottom of the pie with a fork several times so that it doesn't puff up on you in the oven. Otherwise it gets air pockets under there, and that's not what you want. So we're going to put that in there for 10 minutes. It will not be fully cooked when we're done because it has to cook the second time when we put the filling in. After 10 minutes, it's time to pull out those crusts. You see the first one comes out here just fine. I'm using 1 oven mitt. Lesson to the wise, use 2 oven mitts, because you'll see here the second one does not make it out as well. It's still usable. The crust isn't fully cooked, and that's okay because it's going to cook more when we add the egg mixture, but I'll see what I can salvage. Okay, it's time to start our filling. For this, we are going to need some cheese. We're going to need a half a cup of grated cheddar cheese and a cup of grated Swiss cheese. You see me here grating the cheddar cheese. I've already grated the Swiss cheese here. A trick I learned from my cooking instructor in junior high is that if you use an oven mitt while grating cheese, you never scrape your knuckles on the grater. But we're going to mix those two cheeses in with a tablespoon of flour once we get them all grated away. And then we're going to come over here, we're going to grab a fork, and we're going to toss that all together. We're going to mix it up really good and set that off to the side because it's going to be part of our filling later when we get to our eggs. Now it's time to make the garlic and other stuff. So I've got a tablespoon of olive oil in there and frying up that garlic until you can smell it really good. Once you can smell it, we are going to be adding some orange pepper that I've diced up already, a half a cup of orange pepper, and 2 cups of spinach. And so we're going to put those right in that same frying pan. It's already hot. And we are going to then stir those and cook those until the flour or the spinach starts to wilt. Then we'll get rid of any extra liquid and we'll set that aside for later. This is all part of that quiche filling, so it takes a little bit to get it just right and cooked. So keep stirring until that spinach is nice and wilted. Okay, now the key ingredient is bacon. The recipe calls for 5 strips of bacon cooked and crumbled. So we're going to cook it up decently crispy, and then we're going to cut it up. I never believed that 5 pieces of bacon is enough for anything. So I cooked more than 5 pieces of bacon. I'm going to cook it up right here in the pan. I start with a cool pan, and then once the bacon is in, I turn the heat on and we heat it up all together. And then I will cook that up and cut it up. You see Lily's interested. She's walking by checking out the smell of bacon. All right, it's time for the eggs. The quiche is eggs. It's basically scrambled eggs with a bunch of stuff in there. So we're going to take 4 eggs and we're going to crack them in there. We're going to take our time and make sure we don't get shells in there. When I first started cracking eggs, I would hit them too soft, and then the eggs wouldn't want to break for me. Then I hit them too hard, and I'd get pieces of shell in place. You practice and you get it just right. Once you got the 4 eggs in there, we're going to add a cup and a half of milk. The recipe called for whole milk. I used skim milk because that's what we had, and it worked just fine. So we're going to pour that milk in there as well, and then we're going to add some salt and pepper. The recipe once again calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper. I reversed that because I like more pepper than I like salt. So I added about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper and a 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. I like less salt and more pepper. And then we're going to mix that all up. All right, now we're adding that cheese mixture from before. We're going to add that and stir that all up. We're going to add the spinach and peppers and garlic mixture from before. Get that all in there good and stir that all up. And then we're going to bring over that chopped bacon from before and stir that all up. And once we've got that all stirred, we have got the entirety of our quiche. Now it's time to pour half that mix into our first quiche pie shell. This is the one that did not fall in the oven, so it's in nice shape. You can see the dough isn't brown yet. It's still somewhat soft. There's our one that I just kind of scavenged and made do. We're going to pour the rest of that filling into the quiche pie dish, and we're going to set them up, and we're ready to go in the oven. Okay, we're going to put those in the oven. It's still 350 degrees. They're going to bake for about 45 minutes until you put a knife in there in the middle and no liquid comes out of that quiche that you have. but we're not done yet. Job's not done until the kitchen is cleaned up. So we've got a lot of dishes we made. Got to fill that sink with hot water or your dishwasher, whatever way you like to do it. Be very careful when washing. If you have knives, please let the grown-ups wash the knives. Don't you wash the knives. If you are not quite to the skill level yet of getting dishes actually clean, maybe ask for some help. But we got pots and pans and everything that we want to get clean and put away. Because if we're making a surprise dinner for mom or for grandma or for whoever, they don't want the surprise to be that they have to clean up after you when everything is done. Good chef always cleans their mess. Once everything is clean and put away, it'll be about time to pull those quiche out. Now this is the quiche after we've already eaten some in our house. You see this, the side on the left is the quiche that did not fall in the oven. The side on the right was the other. Well, it's a full day later and I'm just finishing up the video right now. So you can see it wasn't the easiest thing to make the video. It wasn't the easiest thing to make the quiche sometimes. But practice makes perfect. Making mistakes is okay. The quiche still tasted great. My family ate it. I would make it again. I'll try harder to be careful with my oven mitts and make sure I do everything a little bit better. But we all make mistakes, and that's kind of part of the fun of cooking is learning how to do new stuff. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you give it a try. If you do, let me know. Drop me a comment. See me in school. Give me a note. Just let me know how it goes. Everybody, thanks for listening and have a great